Welcome to Growth Minded Conversations. We're your hosts, Amy Dieselkamp and Paula Grimes from Growth Minded Talent Solutions, where we talk about the real leadership and hiring decisions behind building a growing business.
I'm joined today with one of my wonderful colleagues, Alyssa. How you doing, Alyssa?
Good to see you, Amy.
Good to see you too. It's been a minute since we've done an episode together.
I'm excited to be back.
I know today we're continuing the conversation around the DISC personality assessment. This is a key assessment, I think, when you're building a team, looking to bring on some leverage to your already existing team, because this assessment really helps us paint the picture of the puzzle pieces that make up each individual personality and then how we all interact with each other.
Yeah. Totally. It shows up in so many different parts of the business, right? Not just communicating between the personalities, but where does it show up with your clients and how can you leverage that?
Yeah. Even family members, right?
I learned about the DISC. I made my whole family take it. I'm like, I need to know.
And if you're just joining us for the first time hearing about the DISC personality assessment, know that you can go back to a previous episode and we go a little bit deeper into this assessment and the 4 personality types. Just to give you a brief overview of all 4, we like to use this little, I call it the elevator analogy.
It's a perfect visual.
It is the perfect visual. The DISC assessment is broken down into 4 different personality types. D is your driver, I is your influencer, S is your stability, and C is your cautiousness. So imagine if each one of these personality types were completely personified 100% in 4 different individuals. And these 4 individuals were walking down the hallway, headed to an elevator. The D would be the person who is in the front of the group. They're your driver. They're fast-paced walking. They might not be paying attention to the conversation happening around them, but they're going to get to the elevator first. They're going to press that button, and they're probably going to punch it a few times if that elevator's taking too long to get there. While they're doing that, you've got your influencer, your I personality back amongst the group. They're chatting. They're asking people about their weekend. They're telling a story. They're engaging people in conversation, and they could care less about what's going on with the elevator. They just want to connect with those around them. And then you've got your S and your C personalities. So when we get to the elevator bay and the D finally gets the elevator to show up, your S personality is going to be the person who steps to the side and makes sure everybody else gets on and that there's plenty of room for everyone. Because if there weren't, they would be the person saying, you guys go ahead, I'll wait, and I'll take the next elevator, because they want to make sure everybody else is taken care of. And then your C personality type is the person who gets on the elevator, finds the elevator plaque, makes sure that it's been checked in the appropriate amount of time, that the certificate's up to date,
Authorized.
calculating everybody's weight to make sure we're within the weight limit, because they're not going to break those rules or be out of compliance. So in a nutshell, those are your 4 different personalities. And today we're going to be talking about the C-type personality, or your cautious personalities. And the reason I'm so excited to talk to Alyssa about this is because you are a high C.
It resonates so much for me. And that elevator analogy is truly, for me, the perfect kind of visual, not of just all 4 of the personalities, but especially the C. It really is, right? Like, some people, your high Ds, your high Is, they're not even going to notice the placard that someone has to come and check every couple of months, right? Or once a year to sign off that the mechanics of the elevator are all up to date on everything. And a high C is going to see that. They are your detail people, and they like following the rules. They like knowing what the expectations are and being able to kind of put together their own plan to hit those expectations.
Exactly. Yeah. Their biggest fear is being wrong, right?
Yeah.
So they are your researchers. They are your manual readers.
They tend to be your what if people. They're asking that, but what if about this? What about this? Right? They tend to be kind of that future thinking. I want to know all of the steps in between.
Yes.
Just in case.
Just in case.
Yes.
So for you as a high C, how does that show up in a good way in the kind of work that you do? How does that help you do your job better?
So I tend to work with the agents I work with. They are those high Ds. They are those high Is. They work at that fast pace. They have 100 things pulling at them in 200 different directions, right? As a high C, being the person who enjoys the details, I like to ask the questions of what if. It allows me to really help be proactive for them and to think about things in a way that maybe they haven't thought about it before. Right? I'm the one that double checks all of the details to make sure things don't fall through the cracks, right? It tends to show up a lot with paperwork or the reminders that are recurring, right? Our agents are really thinking about those, but that's where high Cs really thrive, is being able to be in those details and really be able to help people be proactive. I think that's the joy that I get out of being a high C, is kind of those what if questions allow me to organize the chaos easier so that maybe there are less fires later on.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever experienced where that high C it's kept you from maybe moving forward because you are in research mode to such a high degree?
Yeah. And this is where I think the high C personality type kind of has the biggest range of depth, I
Mhm.
think is what I'm trying to say, right? Someone like myself, absolutely. I do love research. I do like following the rules. And at the same time, if I understand the benefit of moving a little faster, or why we need to move faster, or why we may need to toe the line or be in the gray area a little bit more, I have no problem kind of bending that rule, right? Or being more okay with taking that different step than I normally would. There are also high Cs who are like, nope, this is the rule. I don't feel comfortable crossing that line, right? Or doing something in a different way when I know there is a more correct way, right? Or a way that it should be done. And so that is where, yes, I think there are times, depending on who you are, how you show up, there are times you high Cs can get stuck in that research and might work a little slower. But again, along with all the other personalities, you're not put in a box just because you're a high C. Right?
Yes.
If you're aware of it, you maybe know what the parameters are, the expectations, right? Like I said, if I know that we need to move fast for X, Y, and Z reason, I get why maybe my research time needs to be cut short, right? And I don't maybe get to know every answer to every question I have, but at least I know why. So don't put yourself in a box of, oh, I'm a C and I'm going to always take time. It's just being more aware of it sometimes and kind of understanding the expectations.
Yeah. And that's where the balance of a team really comes into play when you think about these personality types. Great
Absolutely.
team, a strong team needs someone who's going to look at all the different angles, ask all the questions, do the research, pay attention to the details. That person is necessary on a successful team. And if they're paired with the high D, that high D isn't going to let them sit and research for too terribly long, right? Like they're
Yep.
going to make them make a
There is
decision.
the balance.
Going to push them forward. So yeah, that's where if you understand each other, you can balance each other out and you can play to each other's strengths versus, again, like you said, like isolating yourself individually in boxes.
Yeah, I've seen so many operations people or so many assistants who are high Cs who have been able to actually help their team realize, right? Teams come in, you have 100 great ideas. What's the one that you're actually going to take action on, right? I've had some high Cs who have said, like, I was able to really help narrow down our ideas to the one that everybody was on board with. They all thought it was the right next thing to do, right? Or the right next idea to be working on. And they were really able to help guide their team because they know how to naturally ask those kind of what if questions. And it helps narrow things down for people. So there is that balance, right? They aren't the ones coming up with those 100 ideas typically, but they are the ones, right? They might not be that visionary with all these great ideas, but they can help you sort through and comb through what are the ones you should be working on and what ones can kind of take that back seat until now.
So in my experience, when I think about like high C's or people with a lot of that cautious personality out in the world, I think of my brother. He is definitely somebody he's a very high C. He's the type of person where he will read like an operations manual, like front to floor. They got a new car. He read the owner's manual of the new car, right?
Only reading the IKEA instructions on how to put the furniture together so it actually gets put together right the first time.
And you need a high C with IKEA because one little detail how to put the thing wrong together all wrong. But then again, if he shows up, he wants to do the research, he wants to know every detail about it. But then he can also be a very high driver type personality where, they were moving and he was like, we're just going to get it done, right? It was not the most organized, structured move, but it was a tight time turnaround. And he was like, just push forward, just do things to get done. So the C almost went out the window in different situations because he's not all just one thing.
So that reminds me of my brother, actually. And I would describe him in that same kind of way. He is very much a rule follower. He is the person who slows down at the yellow light. We always have to take the 10 extra minutes if we know that Bruce is driving. Love you, Bruce. Well, because he slows down. Whereas I'm more of that C where it's like, oh, it's yellow. I better go a little bit faster to make sure I get through because I want to be efficient on time.
Right. Your part of the rule is I won't run a red light, but I would run a yellow light.
But there are times, like you said, with your brother, if my brother is passionate about something or feeling extra like strongly about it, he can kind of throw that to the wind and say, no, this is how I feel. I feel really strongly about it. I feel good moving forward with whatever that is.
Yeah.
Always show up all the time in the same way. When you're feeling your most comfortable and confident, this is how kind of a C shows up.
What advice would you give to someone who is leading or managing a high C? What's the one or two takeaways that might help them be a better leader to a high C?
I think what helped me the most when I was working for a really high D, we couldn't have been the most opposite on the DISC assessment in that area, was actually him being able to be really transparent with me on what his expectations were around communication and the way that he liked to be communicated with. It was before I fully understood the DISC and all the benefits of understanding the DISC. So it was really helpful for me. And I think what we set up from the beginning, which was good, was really clear expectations. Right, of, okay, this is either the timeline that it needs to be done by, or this is the end result we have to have. Having those clear expectations really helped me as a C because then it was kind of like, okay, great. I know what the end goal is. I can work myself backwards on how do I get myself there. Yeah. And that I think really helped me knowing the expectations and then also knowing what are his preferences on communication because we are two different communication types. He has bullet points. I don't really care about the details. And I care about the details and maybe sometimes can talk in stories.
What it sounds like to me then is like for a high C personality type, their manager, a good manager, a good leader for them is someone who gives them the space to get the details. If it all lives in your head as a leader and you don't give the high C personality access to that headspace some way, somehow, right? I'll put it all in an email for you, or we can jump on the phone and have a full conversation. If you don't make yourself available for them to ask their questions and to get a clear picture of what you're expecting, that's going to leave them in limbo. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to give them that opportunity to get what's in your head out of your head and let them then figure it out from there.
And sometimes the best, right? It's like, I think, especially for my leadership style, I am not a high C. I do pay attention to a lot of details. And I have a really high amount of S in me. So, like, I want to take care of my people, I want to provide for them. And sometimes I get in my head of like, what do they need to know? But with a high C, you don't have to think through what they need to know. If you give them the ability to ask their questions, they will pull out of you what they need in
Right.
order to move forward. So just sometimes it's just showing up and saying, like, where are you with this project and what do you need from me on it? And let them ask their questions because they probably have a list of them.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times you don't need a ton of time, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a 30-minute meeting. It could literally be done in 5 minutes if you guys get really efficient at what your process is. Give me my brain dump. Okay, great. I've got all of my notes, deadlines. Great. You're good to go, right? And when you get in your flow and you guys are communicating well together, it can be simple. It doesn't always have to be long meetings.
Any words of advice or wisdom for maybe those high C's out there that are like, oh, I finally understand what I am and why I am this way? Any of this?
I would say, honestly, being aware of what your personality style is, regardless of where you land, can be so helpful for you in understanding who you are and why you tend to do things the way you do them. For high C's, venture out of your comfort zone if you can a little bit, right? And maybe tiptoe that line or see if you can see the differences in the people around you and determine kind of how can you be better fit with the other personality styles.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Alyssa. This was a great episode. I'm so glad that we got to talk. And to our listeners out there, if you are interested in learning more about the other 3 personality types, the high Ds, Is, and S's that make up our DISC personality profiles, check back in our library because they are all discussed individually on previous episodes. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys again next week.
All right, growth minded leaders, that's a wrap on today's episode. We hope this sparked some fresh ideas and fueled your drive to build, lead, and grow with purpose. And if something we shared helped shift your perspective, we'd love for you to leave a review. It helps us reach more business builders just like you. Better yet, share this with someone on your team or in your inner circle who's ready to level up their leadership game. Until next time, keep leading boldly, hiring wisely, and training with intention.